as he departed the White House for this tax reform speech down in Missouri later today. The theme of the day for the White House is supposed to be tax reform. But of course, here in Washington, Wolf, it feels like Groundhog Day because we're all talking about the president's controversial and questionable use of social media earlier this morning. This time, it was the president's use of Twitter and retweeting those very inflammatory videos from the far-right British organization, Britain First. They are essentially anti-Muslim videos that purportedly show, they're not verified, but they purportedly show Muslims causing harm to people over in Great Britain and other parts of Western Europe. Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, she was asked about this earlier this morning by reporters. Here's what she had to say.
I think his goal is to promote strong borders and strong national security, and I think that is, again, something that is no secret to anyone that that's a big focus of this president and a big focus of this administration. But whether it's a real video, the threat is real, and that is what the president is talking about. That's what the president is focused on, is dealing with those real threats, and those are real no matter how you look at it.
So does it matter if it's a fake video?
Look, I'm not talking about the nature of the video. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. The threat is real, and that's what the president is talking about.
So Wolf, a very critical point there was raised in that Q&A with Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary. She was asked whether or not the president even knew that these videos were real before he retweeted them. She did not answer that question. She only said that the threat is real regardless of whether the video is real. Wolf, I know we're banging up against decades of restraint and covering the president. That is a part of the tradition of covering the White House, but it's hard to argue that the president was doing anything other than race baiting when he was on the internet earlier this morning.
Yeah, it's still hard to believe that he wouldn't have his National Security Council, his advisors, check out those videos, very controversial anti-Muslim videos, before he would retweet them to simply see if they were legitimate. And this is what we've seen, Jim, from the president over the past 3 days alone. He made that Pocahontas comment once again involving Senator Elizabeth Warren during a ceremony honoring Native American Navajo code talkers, World War II heroes. Did that on Tuesday. He attacked African American athletes over the anthem protests, railed against illegal immigrants, spoke about his own birther claims that former President Obama was born in Kenya. Today, the anti-Muslim videos. What happened to the assumption that bringing in General John Kelly as the White House Chief of Staff would put all of this to an end?
That's right, Wolf, and I tried to ask General Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff, as he was leaving with the president, did he check the videos before the president posted them? Of course, he didn't respond to that. But again, Wolf, this goes back to the question here at the White House. Why is it necessary for us to ask whether or not the White House Chief of Staff is keeping an eye on the president and his social media habits when the president himself vowed to the American people that he would be a president for all people, that he would be a presidential commander-in-chief? If you look at that list that you just laid out there a few moments ago, Wolf, it is hard to wrap your heads around the fact that it's only Wednesday, and he's offended nearly every minority or religious group that you can possibly offend here in the United States. And it just raises the question for this president, and it's a question that is almost raised every day, who is left for him to offend? And it's just another example of how this White House really has to pay more attention to what's happening inside the Oval Office with the President of the United States behaving in this fashion and spending less time honing its message, trying to get legislation passed. Here you have the president taking off right now on Air Force One for this speech down in Missouri that was designed to sell the GOP tax plan. And, of course, as Republicans up on Capitol Hill know, all we're talking about this morning is the president's very questionable, very controversial, very racially tinged use of social media earlier this morning. It is like Groundhog Day because it is literally what we wake up to and come to the White House to expect every day here at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Wolf. It is basically what happens every day here.
I'm sure his own advisors are wondering what's going on as well. Let's go to London. Phil, the president retweeted these anti-Muslim videos that are very disturbing. Talk about the source of these videos, the source being where you are in Britain, and what you're hearing about the president's retweets. There is some angry reaction coming in from the British government.
Yeah, indeed, Wolf, that's right. The tweets originally came from Britain First, as Jim was saying. This is a group whose members will tell you they are Christian patriots, but there is a much more widely held view that this is a group of people who are divisive, racist, and really quite extreme in the way they go about trying to achieve their agenda. They believe that British people, this country's traditional values, that these are all under threat by immigration, and in particular by the Islamic faith. They fear, they say, the Islamification of this country. And so that is why they contest elections, not very successfully, but that is also why they go out onto the streets and confront Muslims in very aggressive, provocative ways. And it is for this that the leadership of this group, including the woman who originally tweeted these videos, they have been charged and prosecuted for hate speech and these sorts of things. So today that organisation is thrilled to have received this sort of publicity, this sort of amplification of their views. But British politicians here are much more concerned, including the British Prime Minister Theresa May, who has said that Donald Trump was wrong to spread these videos, these messages in this way, because there is an understanding here in Britain that far-right groups, well, you can't flirt with them, you can't encourage them, you can't give them that sort of voice. Remember, it was only last year that a British politician by the name of Joe Cox was murdered on the streets by really a far-right terrorist who screamed, among other things, Britain first, as he shot and stabbed her repeatedly. So there is a great deal of concern, a great deal of outrage in this country today, calling on the government to really condemn Donald Trump for this move. And it puts the British government in a very difficult position, because Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has worked very hard to try and maintain a close, constructive working relationship with America's president. That's not always been popular here, and now these tweets will make it even